part of the Digital Onboarding Summit. I think it's really exciting to have you here. We obviously know each other from a long time ago and had worked together a little bit. So, but I'm excited to know what you've been doing since then. So what would be great is to start off with a little background of yourself so that we can understand what you've done before and what you're doing today.
Great, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be there today. So yeah, what can I tell? So I started my career in design 9.5 years ago. And I did, since then, I did have very many different roles. All of the roles have always been related to people topics, which is my passion. And the last 4.5 or 5 years I basically spent as you would call it somewhere else, as an HR manager, but we call it people partner in Design It, based for the Design It Germany offices basically. As I said, my passion has always been around people. I always wanted to make a workplace that people like to go to every day, where they actually really enjoy having time with people and really want to contribute to do something cool and have fun at work and deliver great work. So since December last year, I got the opportunity to pick up, let's say, another challenge that we have faced in Design It, and now it's called, my role is called Global Integration Lead. So what does that mean? I basically try to help either already existing companies integrate into Design It or build companies up from scratch, what we do right now. We have done that with Australia. So we have bought a small agency in Australia last year and have integrated them, like the general manager there and also the team, with all the processes and everything it does take into Design It. And now we're building an office in Dubai, which was another journey because we are starting it from scratch basically.
That's cool. How many people is Design It now?
That's a very good question. I think around 600, probably between 550 and 600, I would say, yeah.
Okay, and how does the larger company kind of affect it? So Wipro is, another huge company, right? So does that kind of, do you need to take that into account when you're thinking about, Design It and the larger organization that, that owns it?
I think for some offices more, for some less. So when we actually, I think Wipro, of course, plays an important role because they are owning us and we are, it's basically one big family. But our processes and everything we do are independent from Wipro. So, of course, we are reporting a lot and we are having a lot of, conversations with them on different topics. But not all offices are like in day-to-day exchange with them, at least not the team. Some of the management, of course. And the higher management in Design It, yes, on a daily basis, but not everybody on a day-to-day. And as an example, on the example of Australia, we actually did, reach out to Wipro because they have a bigger support team that can actually help with a lot of things that we don't have in place because we're too tiny. So, we are having support from a legal point of view. We're doing payroll and things like this together with Wipro. So it's basically things where we are not having enough manpower. Wipro is helpful.
Got it. And one of the things I remember from Design It's culture was, Design It was the culture, right? So I'm sure that, that's been one of the biggest things to, as you kind of move across different regions, scaling that culture is obviously a big challenge. So one of the things I would like to start off with is, how do you describe Design It's culture in a way?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a difficult one, and you're right. We always felt that culture, since we started, and everybody that was working really felt the culture. And how do you transport that? And how do you scale that? And we actually struggled, and we actually had some difficulties around that. But I think now we are in good shape because we have created our own company rules of thumb, our values basically, which describe very much who we are. And this is very much based on behavior between people.
Mm-hmm.
That we, like one of the rules as an example is called no assholes. We don't want to have assholes in Design It. And of course, if everybody can describe that differently, but we have a here to help attitude. We try to fix things when we fail early, and we try to keep them simple and just, go about it. We try always to have like a service mindset, the way we work with clients and things like this. So I think we have 10 rules that describe it really, really well, but they're all based on our behavior. How do we treat each other? And we use that also when we do recruit. So, how you can actually maintain the culture is by already recruiting the right mindset of people. And sometimes we'd rather take people on that are having an amazing personality with the right mindset, maybe are not 100% there yet on the expectation of the role, but we would rather grow them into because they have the talent instead of just hiring for the competence.
Right. Now that's a really kind of important distinction, because especially in a people-focused organization, you know that you can always build talent, but you can always build skills, but in terms of what they bring to the table, what they add to the team is what is more important. So,
absolutely.
So as you've kind of been, taking that from, let's say, Denmark and Germany, mostly a European-centric organization, where are the different places that Designers has expanded to in the last 9 years?
I think we are probably everywhere around the globe, at least in every continent. So of course we have expanded to America. So we have now 2 locations in North America, and we have locations in South America, and we have, we are in Japan, we are in Australia, as I mentioned before, we're in Tel Aviv, we are in India, we are in Europe, everywhere, I think in Spain, and heavy in Scandinavia still, in Germany, and of course we always have like some satellite offices where we are trying things out and we're just working with clients, which might not lead to a permanent office, but we are pretty spread, I'd say, yeah.
Okay, cool. So going back to the culture thing, and I think you mentioned Australia was one of the first places that you took on, in your new role to startup. So was Australia something that was started from the ground up, or was it an acquisition? How did that go about?
Yeah, it was an acquisition. There was a team of 7 people already there. And it was a well-established design studio in Sydney. And it's still the same team with the same managing director there. And they were looking for a partner, a bigger one, because they of course also wanted to have a bit of a bigger reach with their clients. And we were looking to expand and to actually enter the market in Australia because we believe there's a lot of potential there.
So walk me through your process of, your role that you've played in the last few months in bringing that organization into design its culture, and then, starting to set up some of these processes in place.
Yeah. So I think what is important to mention is that we didn't really know what that role is going to look like. So it was what we do with our clients, what we do with the work that we're actually doing. We try to do things and prototype as we go along. And that was similar to that role. So when I picked it up, I was like, the acquisition actually just happened. And so the deal was closed, and it was for me to take it on and then think about it, what I'm going to do with these people. Mm-hmm. So I think what helped me a lot is all the experience that I have made with Designet and all the contacts that I have, because I don't know everything, but I know who can actually do it. So that was basically, I think, one of the good reasons why I succeeded in that role, because I knew who to actually reach out to. And I think that's one important thing. You cannot do it on your own. You need a team, and everybody needs to actually help. Otherwise, we're not successful. So what I did is I was I was reaching out to Katja. She's the MD there. So I was trying to understand where she's actually coming from, getting to know a little bit her experience and understanding what she's expecting also, because when you do an acquisition and there's an existing team, there's high expectations. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to become, cool and become Designet and get all the good things that, of course, you're hopefully trying to get when you're actually becoming part of a bigger company. So I wanted to understand what are the expectations on each level, like from a managing director point of view, from a people point of view, but also from a Designet point of view. So the first weeks were just for me to understand what is going on and how can I navigate. And then Wipro also needed to be involved. So I also needed to understand their end. And then what I actually was thinking, okay, my end goal is that I need to go there and I need to make sure that every single employee at some point understands, okay, now I'm part, I feel part, I know what the process is, I know what is expected from me, and how can I actually be in this environment. That was the end goal. And all the steps in between, I didn't really know, and I just went through them as they came. And I think, so a collaboration with a managing director there was crucial, because also the time difference to Europe was, everybody that is basically in functions is based in Europe, or most of them. Mm-hmm. So we had a struggle with the time difference. So for them, it was very important to have this one person in between that constantly helps them, even though it's maybe late nights or early morning. Yeah. So I think that was very crucial for them to have this person in the middle to make sure that they can connect. And then what I did, I tried to, as soon as possible, add people to that team. So Katja, the MD, also starts to understand who to reach out for what. And I was basically in the middle and just tried to fix things in the back end on processes, integration of systems, setting up the IDs and stuff like that. All of the administrative part of things, I tried to do that without involvement of anybody, because it's like things that people don't really care, but they are necessary to be implemented. And then I try to focus on working with them, understanding them, making them feel heard, connecting them and things like this. And then I think once we were on a page where we were integrated from a process and system point of view, then I went to Australia, and then I met them in person, face to face, and I spent 2 weeks with them. And then I gave them instructions about everything that we do, who we are, what is our culture. And I wanted to make it as visible and transparent and tangible as possible, because of course you can read a book and it's nicely written, and then you hope that you can actually get the values of the company, and you need to live them. So what I wanted to connect to them, and I really wanted to make them understand what it means and feel part of the culture. So I think some people sometimes say like the cultural ambassador part in me is what means the most to them, and I don't even know how to describe it. It's just me telling about it. And I think that was very important to them, so they could really get a sense of what it does mean to be part. And I sat down with everybody, and I wanted to understand everyone. And of course, you might need to do it different when you acquire a company with 50 or more people. You cannot do that. I was 7, so I thought what's best for them. And I sat down with everybody, and I tried to have everybody some sort of on the same page before I leave again. And I think that was, at least received positively, and put them into a shape where they then thought afterwards, like, okay, now we feel part of it, and now we know how things work, and we're still in contact. So whenever they have a question, they reach out to me. So I think that was all the magic. It wasn't like
Have they really grown since? It started off as 7 people. Have they been hiring since then?
Yeah, they have. I don't know how many. I think 3 or 4 in Sydney, and then there's also a Melbourne team. And that is a team from Design It, from within, basically. So we have 4 people there. So yeah, it's slowly, but of course we have ambitions to grow, but due to the changes, we also need to take it slow, because we don't want to overwhelm them, and also not the market. You need to take every step by step.
Yeah, like jumping back to the mothership, which is mostly in Europe and where it started. How is onboarding done at Design It today?
Yeah. So we have an automated flow where as soon as someone signs a contract, you get signed up into a system. And then there's a design flow that, like, I think 3 or 4 years ago already, was designed by a bigger team also within Design It. And then there will be like emails sent out to the candidates, reminders internally sent out to people that actually have a responsibility in onboarding, information gets sent and so on. So that leads up to the first day. And then on the first day, when the employee starts, it's more on a local responsibility. So of course we have drafts and guidelines on how you need to set them up, but every local office gives it the personal twist. So we have like an onboarding guideline for a day, basically, and then you have like the first 6 months, or mostly the first 3 months, you have like dedicated sessions going on and on and on. And it depends also a lot on whether you have a very local role, or whether you have like a cross role between local or global, or whether you have a global role. Then of course you have like more calls and you need to exchange with more people within Design It. But if you would have a normal local design role, as the majority of our team members, then you would have a dedicated session going on from day one. And I think the main focus points that we have is getting to know the team, making that person, present him or herself, having a kickoff meeting with the manager to understand the expectations, really understanding how Design It does work, what is our strategy, what are the tools, and then meeting different local functions, so you know who to go to at what time and for what. And also meet peers, but also meet like potential people leaders, so you understand a little bit where you are at and what's expected from you and how to navigate, basically. And of course, very important is the whole experience around it. So we have a buddy, and a buddy is taking care about all the social components, basically, making sure that you have lunch, making sure that you are not sitting on your own, making sure that you get to know the team members, making sure that you have the time to hang out with people after work and things like this. So One is more like on a professional perspective, and the other one is more on the social component. So we take care about you as a whole human, basically.
Mm-hmm. And who assigns this buddy in a team? Let's say I have a team, somebody's coming into my team. Who's responsible for hiring and to assign who will be the buddy?
It's usually the people partner in the different offices, because the people partner HR manager role in design, it might be different to other companies. So we have like a very deep focus on experience and people's well-being, meaning that we, in these functions or in these roles, we are very connected to the team. So we're not just administrational people that do stuff and write contracts. We work very much with employee experience, meaning that you have a connection to the people in your office, and you also have been part of recruiting this person. So with that knowledge, you're most likely a good candidate to actually select who would be the best buddy. And if you're not sure, then of course you have like the possibility to ask the people leader, but usually it's the people partner.
Right. I remember, I think when I used to work in the Copenhagen office, we used to have a little placard where it said, "I am a buddy."
Exactly. Yeah.
It said, "I'm a buddy," and then on the new hires desk, it was, "Your buddy is." Is that
Correct.
something you do?
We still have it. Some offices use it, some don't. I think it's also, whenever you're running out of these things, but people do other stuff, so there is either a picture or this little card. So it's a little bit up to what is in stock. But yes, we do something like that.
Yeah. You talked about the role of, automation in this process a little bit. So what is the role of digital, in this employee experience that you design for the new hires in design?
I think it's a very important one, because when before we had the system, we had the same ambitions. We wanted to have the same experience and we wanted to do the same things, but we were just overwhelmed by it. When you grow a lot and when you have many people starting, we had weeks where we had like every month where we had like 3, 4, 5 people starting. How would you be able to actually not forget what you have to do, what you have to prepare, and also managers and everybody that needs to be involved, because onboarding in our case is a group effort. It's not one person that takes care about everything. So how would you try to manage that everybody is prioritizing time, that no one is forgetting the appointments, and also that you create some sort of the same experience for every person, because some people are natural, great buddies or great leaders, and they have the right tone of voice and they have the right information to share. And some might struggle a little bit. And we wanted to make sure that everybody gets the same experience when you read emails, when you get information before you start and all of that. And that people can actually fulfill the timings that are actually set throughout the whole experience. So I think without an automation that actually sends reminders to all the people that are involved, we wouldn't be able to succeed. So we have reminders, that actually are, informing us that, hey, in next week, this is happening, don't forget, or something like this. And it also is happening, it's sent to the people partner who is basically in charge of the process, and it's sent to the responsible person. So we have like 4 eyes principle on it. So it's going to happen. I think it's crucial to have it. Otherwise I think if you have like one person starting a year, then you can do it without. But as soon as you have more people starting, you need to have a bit of help. You cannot do it.
Yeah, and does this does this process transfer to the different offices? Because again, in one office it's fine, but is the same process, because of the digitization or because of the culture of design, it transported to different geographies?
I think we are culturally a bit different wherever we go, because we think that's also relevant, because the markets are different, and the cultures in the regions are very different. So yes, I think there is a bit of a difference, but when it's about how we work and how we want people to interact with each other, we give guidelines from global. So that's why this onboarding experience, this automated flow, is for everybody, and everybody needs to use it. So at least, there's from global is the same tone of voice. How people will then actually continue doing that throughout the journey of the employee, it might be a little bit different. But at least to set the start and to get everybody the same experience when you start working at Design It, because you're not starting to work in New York or in Germany. You're starting to work in Design It, and that's why it should have some sort of the same experience. So yes, we do it globally. And we just, I think at some point we would need to level this up. We're working on another version of onboarding to, improve, of course. And then we might also use automation at a later stage, because right now we're just using it for up until you start and then for the first 3 months. And I think we need to do more, but I think it's just a matter of prioritization why we haven't done it yet. But I think there could be more, and maybe also maybe different in different locations. But for now, I think it is really helpful, and we have the same experience globally.
No, it's great that you even talk about onboarding for the first 3 months as just the beginning, because when we work with multiple clients, there's various kind of perspectives on onboarding. Some of them just think of it as 30 days, some of them think of it as 60 days. Many of the companies that we work with, we tend to ask them to start onboarding before day one, almost 30 days before day one, and then 90 days after. And there's a couple of companies who consider onboarding as the entire year, right? Because that first year itself is a very important milestone for an employee to learn everything. And I think the bigger the organization, potentially the onboarding is longer. You could learn everything about a 5-person team, maybe in, 1 month. But as soon as you have a 50-person team or 500-person team and 500,000-person team, then the departments increase. And like you said, the complexity of the organization increases.
Right now, we really discuss that topic as well, because I think onboarding is the most important part of onboarding is when someone is very new. But then, first of all, the offices change, and then, people are changing. Then people go on sick leave, maternity leave, sabbaticals. So when they come back after half a year, the company has changed. So how would they be able to again tap into their previous role and do the same things as good as before if they have been out for a year? So we are talking about that we need to do some sort of a re-onboarding for people that have been there for a little bit but then have been out for a little bit. And also, I can talk about myself. I've been with the company since 9.5 years, so I think I know a lot. But whenever you talk to people, you always figure out, I didn't know that. So I think people that have been with the company on a day-to-day, we are changing so fast, and we have 17 different offices that do things on a daily basis to make us evolve. So we need to do also in-between boardings, on several things that we do. Yeah. So I think onboarding is really something that is like a lifetime as you're in the company. Of course, it's the most important in the beginning, but there's always things, especially if you are part of an organization that is changing so much, you constantly need to onboard on something, actually.
I think when we'd spoken before, you'd mentioned, and this might be related to Dubai, the next project that you're going to be doing, which essentially is that when you start a new office, there's a combination of people. There's new hires who come in. There's actually old designers from other locations who are moving in, and there might be another cohort. So I think that's definitely an interesting thing, because the person who is moving from another country or from the headquarters to another country might need a whole different type of onboarding, because while they know about the company, they might need to know more about the culture of the city or how people work.
Yeah.
So maybe you can share a little bit more about your Dubai project and what are the challenges that you're facing there?
Yeah, I think you are talking about one of the challenges that I'm facing right now is exactly, how do we set this? So I have some thoughts around that, and we most likely will have this onboarding happening in the beginning of October. And I think, the ambition of creating a place, like a location that is, in a new region, was that we actually have people from the region and people from Design It. So, this was the goal, to make sure that we have culture transported, ways of working transported, but also get regional experience, because it's a very different region to where we have ever worked before. So we need to gain some knowledge there. And how we would like to translate that right now in an onboarding program is, I do believe, again, that onboarding is a team effort. So I think we, from the global team, we can come with certain information. We can give them some sort of guidelines on this is how you should do this, and this is how we are expecting you to do this, especially for the new starters. And especially also for the ones that are joining from within Design, that we actually align. It's more about aligning and bringing everybody on the same page. What my focus definitely will be working with the teams, making them understand how they are different, what have they what is their experience so far, and how can they create their own way of working as designer colleagues in the future. So that's going to be my focus, and I will work with them as persons. I will not at all touch any expectations from designer. I will want to understand who you are, what do you expect, why do you go to Dubai. There's so many things behind people now moving to Dubai. I would like to take this as a focus and make sure that they start somewhere together. And then additionally, what we would like is that, as I said, you would like to create this together. So I would like to invite the ones that are joining from the region. They need to bring something from the region. So either they tell a little bit about the complexity of the clients, or how it is to be a woman, as an example, in Dubai, because there is a lot of concerns, so there's so much to learn. And then we have like a huge history in Dubai that needs to be some sort of transported, because it's relevant for client interaction and things like this. So I think this is what they can bring. And then I would love to make everybody from Design It bring their story on their office, and how do they work? What is their team rituals? What do they do? How do they share knowledge? How do they build each other and things like this? And I'd like to use a day to make all of them bring something, and then make them understand that we're all on the same page. It's new. We don't know how we're going to do this all together, but we have to do it all together. And I believe that this is a good idea, and we'll make it work that way. And with this, we onboard some sort of us all together, but of course we will bring basic information and some workshop preparations with us.
Yeah, no, I remember you talking about how you need to let employees design their own onboarding experience in some way, because they know what they want, right? So I think that's what you're kind of going ahead with that same philosophy. And earlier you mentioned prototyping these ideas. And I guess you're in that phase where you're, obviously, launching new regions every couple of months, and maybe the first few are all prototypes. But over time, you will kind of have a system which works, and then that's the way every country. You almost create almost a design toolkit for creating your own design culture. That might eventually become a interesting kind of outcome, because you would have already gone into each of these places and found the best methods to define your onboarding process.
Absolutely. And I think what is also one very crucial point here is that the intercultural component is something that we cannot underestimate. I think, I don't know whether would that be India or whether that would be Dubai. I think probably whenever you open up an office somewhere in Europe, it's not such a big difference. But, now we are moving to Dubai with people from Australia, from Spain, from India, from Germany, from Scandinavia. So it's and then the people that we actually hire are from Italy, so everyone is new to that culture. And I think, of course, we want to set some sort of the bar of what designed culture is, but of course, we also need to give it flexibility. And I think this is something that we have all learned going throughout. In the beginning, our culture was felt. Then we needed to some sort of put it in some words. And then we needed to understand how rigid we think about it, because culture is not something that you need to dictate. It needs to some sort of come with the flow and with the feelings and with the people. So there needs to be some flexibility, but there needs to be some guidance. And that's what we're trying with Dubai. And I hope that also out of the Australian project, we have learned some of the things. We have tested the first time. We'll do one of the things that we have done there. We do it again because it worked well. So I think there will be sessions as we go along that we will always make sure that we integrate if they actually turn out to be good. So we will slowly but surely build a program. So hopefully at some point we will be able to also onboard bigger teams with a really good set of a toolkit that we can actually just roll out.
Yeah. Talking about your role itself for the business, right? Because the fact that your role exists means that the business places value in making sure that, culture integration is an important thing. How much of your role would you say is a lot about compliance processes, etc., versus, making sure that it is all the intangible cultural experiences are taken care of? What would you say is your split? And from the business's point of view, I think you might have your own view, but when you were given this role, how much of it was either or?
I think when I was given that role, the focus probably was, let's say, 80%, process and implementing and integration. So more like the business focus and 20% on culture. But I gave it that flavor myself because I think it's so important. And I think they actually, like the global leadership team, gave me that trust that I can handle it in a way that I think it makes sense, which is really great because it's worth it and it's paying off, and the feedback was great. So now I think they wouldn't even, want to make me either focus on this or on that. They trust that I find the right balance. And I do think that in the beginning, also with the Dubai project, it's very heavy on, the compliance stuff. We need to get the branch registered and things like this. So of course it's very heavy on that end, but we're recruiting at the same time. So as I'm recruiting myself, I have this culture focus constantly happening because this is the way how I recruit. So I would say probably 50-50 right now, but probably 80% of more compliance tasks in the first 3 months. And now as we go towards the onboarding, I would say it shifts. So I think overall, let's say 50-50, but on different phases basically.
Yeah. So initially, like you said, with Australia, you could do a lot of the compliance stuff, either through, some kind of automation or do it online. But when you are there in person, a lot of it is about building culture, hiring for culture, and making sure that you have the right diversity.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the things that, of course, is talked about a lot, but it seems very natural to design it in what you're doing is, having that inclusive atmosphere, right? I think there's so much talk about the diversity and inclusion, and it means a lot of things to a lot of people, but I think Dubai is a great example. You mentioned, a lot of people from the West moving to the East, different cultural kind of perspectives about the role of women in society. How does somebody who is local even think of design, right? The value of design and the value of that profession itself. In the East, it might have been more craft oriented, so now it's different. So I think there's so many different layers that you mentioned. Is there anything specific that you think Design It has that makes it naturally an inclusive place to be?
I think for us it's self-explaining that we are not hiring, one country or something like this. So anything that we do, we tackle it from an international perspective. So I think that's like a core rule for us. And I think it's not even a rule. It's like, this is how we breathe basically, because we believe in this different angles that you can get with it, the different perspectives, the different educations, the different approaches, and also especially the different preferences in cultures and things like this. So I think internationality is something that is core to who we are. And then I think what we do on top of that, and I think sometimes we might overdo this with some cultures, we are expecting that you are easy in your communication, that you are transparent, that you are not hierarchical. So this is something that comes from a cultural set. So of course, we have like 2 locations in America. And of course you focus, or you actually face the challenge sometimes in America that it's more hierarchical. The market is requiring higher titles and things like this. So, but I think we as a company, we force people to just be easy and don't worry about the title. It comes anywhere with your success. It's more about the personality and who you are and what you can actually add to the table. It's like a big kitchen where you have like many ingredients, and it doesn't really matter how you call it. You have to add something to it. Yeah. And this is a little bit, I think this is the way how we breathe. And you can talk to each and everyone in Design It, no matter if it's that GLT, global leadership team, or whether that's an intern. We see everybody at the same page. And this is the way we recruit, the way we do talent reviews, the way we actually move people from A to B. This is a mindset that we constantly inject, I would say. And that's why I don't think there's many people that have a chance to change that within Design It.
No, it's great. And I think, like you said, it's always good to get refreshers in that. Like somebody stays in the organization for so long, to kind of make sure that, like this is the DNA of an organization. And it could be, the DNAs could be processes, could be cultural nuances, could be values, could be certain kind of functional trainings that you need to do. I think all of those obviously need to keep getting upgraded. And like you mentioned, the mindset is an important thing to do as well. You'd also talked, I think, when you told me about the international mindset or attitude. I remember a conversation with you earlier where you mentioned, you sell travel as a broader experience to all employees. That is something that you almost encourage, cross-pollinating people from different places so that everybody has that empathy to other cultures and other audiences and other geographies.
Yeah. And I think it's very important because, you can learn on a design project. Of course, you're leveling up your skills. You hopefully get better in your craft. You learn the different complexities of the different projects and things like this. But of course, we focus on it as well. But, the best how to learn about yourself and to grow yourself is working with people. And, we have, of course, service designers and researchers have this natural way of working anyway with consumers. And, of course, the way they work is empathy driven, where they need to get this and understand it. And of course, I believe that the majority of all our people are very good in this anyways, due to the way we work. But I do think that when you go to another place where you are put into a group that you don't know, which is coming from all different parts in the world and having different educations and backgrounds, but also design experience, you again start with yourself. It starts always with yourself. You need to reflect. So, okay, who am I? How do I fit in here? How do I, get perceived? Because me in a German context might be perceived very different than in a Copenhagen context or in a Dubai context. So I think you need to re-find yourself all the time. And that makes you grow as a person. And I do believe that's a very, very important part of growing as an individual and growing your maturity.
Yeah, that's a good segue into what I wanted to ask you next, which is, having been in Design It for 9.5 years, now, of course, you started off, did you start off as a contractor or an intern earlier?
As an intern, yeah.
As an intern, right? So, and so therefore you've kind of obviously been in that role for a long time. And in some way, the magic of your role has been you maybe built it as you've gone. What are the skills you feel like you've built over time? Is there anything that is, redundant? Like, do you see your career in phases, like initially in the last 9 years, and what are you looking to do? What are the skills you're looking to build in the future?
I think one important skill that I was never so scared of, but what I had to train a lot and do a lot was facing something new. So I think in my role, and maybe it's also not me that is actually happy in a role where you do things all over and over and over again. So I actually like as soon as it's new. So, but I think when I look back, probably 5 years when I did it the first time, I was very scared. And I was like, how do I do it? And what is the boundaries? Who's guiding me? And I think this is something that I had to change. I had to trust myself and I had to just go with it. And it's not like this that I have reached that point where I think I know everything. So I have very much and very often the point where I'm like, it would be nice if someone could guide me a little bit. But I do have people that actually know me well and then say, you can do it. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And then I can just run with it, But I think this confidence building is something that comes with failing and doing things. And I think this is very important for everything that we do. And I also think some people in some, organizations, people that I also experienced through interviews are very scared of saying the truth, of always trying to make up stories and make them, look like better than they are. And I don't believe that this is good. I really believe that the more transparent you are with what you can do and what you cannot do, the more mature you are and the better you can grow. And we have this within Design It, but especially also when we recruit, that sometimes I really like, you are in this constant challenge of finding out, so is this true what you're saying, or is this not true? Are you just making it up? Yeah. And I think when I started, I didn't know, can I do this with Design It or can I not? Do I have to act something out or can I just be as I am? And I really have to say I can be myself in Design It. And I think that is very important in your job. When you can be yourself, you can grow faster and you can grow more sustainable. Because I think if you constantly have to make something up, then you will always face this path or this end point where you're like, I cannot do it anymore. And I think this is something, so, being okay with yourself, telling when you don't know things, being transparent, and that also gives a lot of credibility. And that's what I also receive now as feedback, because when I do onboardings, there's a lot of things that we don't know. there's a lot of things that I cannot share because this is the question that someone asked the first time and we haven't even talked about it. But what I do, I say, okay, that's interesting. I'll take a note, and for next time we're going to do it better. I don't know. So, and I think this is the feedback that I personally got, that this is what makes people believe in everything that you say. Authenticity. What's that word? Authenticity. Yeah. Yeah. Is what you need. And I think it's very important. And I think especially in a time where we are in, there's so many uncertainties. We don't really know what's tomorrow. I think we need to start with ourselves and just be honest about it.
No, that's a good point. And so maybe like it's a good thing to include that in the onboarding itself, where, you know, and maybe you do this, is asking people questions about, you know, what are they afraid of? What are they confident about? What would they like to learn? Because putting that intention out there obviously will help the organization know what you want to learn. And also your peers will know what you can contribute. And in some way, once you kind of get into the organization the first time, that is a great time for us to kind of understand who that new person is, and the person to understand, you know, what can I learn? I'm putting this out there. I'm really bad at X. Can somebody help me? And that's how you build your community. So that's
really. And I think what is also very important for people that are very business focused and maybe think that everything I'm saying is too fluffy and too much about care and emotions and things like this, I really think it's very close to business, because the more you care about people and the more you focus about the weak spots that people have and all their things that they are scared of, the easier you are to understand, or the easier it is to understand that person as a whole human. And once you have understood that, you know where you can actually start with that person, and you can make this person efficient from day one on if you know where this person is. If you're thinking about something else with that person and this person constantly tries to make it up, you are not going to get a successful employee, because this employee is constantly just trying to close the gap. And right. I do think it's really important for the business to understand that we need to care about individuals. We need to understand where they're at with all the experience and all the personality. And when we tap into this, then we can make them grow from day one. And then they can actually support the business. And together we can actually become successful. So I do think it's super closely related to the business success, that we are actually taking care about the individual's needs, fears, desires, and development areas.
Yeah, I think that's a great conclusion actually to the discussion, because many times we are always asked about the value of, you know, onboarding culture to business, and many these things are not something that you will see tomorrow. You will essentially see them over time, but you'll actually see them at 100x, not at 10x, and I think that's important to understand. And like you said, it's a very important business strategy to have good onboarding. So yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so thank you so much. I think this is such a wonderful discussion. I constantly learn a lot from the last conversation I had as well as this. Yeah, thank you for being here.
And thank you so much for having me.